Well, I have been accused of being a bad influence on people, but a great influencer, and I think that may be the case again. And we're going to tell you all about it in this episode of Travels with Delaney,
the podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. My name's Patrick.
I'm Patty.
And today we are joined by my aunt and uncle. I guess they're your aunt and uncle, too.
Yes, they are.
You probably, if you followed our podcast, you probably remember my uncle. Some of you know him by Colonel Woody, or we just call him Uncle Dennis, and my aunt Priscilla. Welcome, guys. We're glad to have you back on the podcast.
Well, thanks. It's great to be on the podcast as well as taking another vacation together.
Yes.
That's right.
And we are sitting in an RV that is not our alliance.
No, it's not ours.
But before we get to that, we have to do another episode of This or That.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, Patty, you don't have to be in the hot seat today.
Yay!
We have guests. Patty gets all excited when we have guests because she doesn't have to be in the hot
me.
seat. So, we are on a vacation right now. We are in Central Florida, currently in Tavares, Florida, at the Fisherman's Cove RV Park. We've been here for a week.
Place.
And we've ate some pretty good meals out. So, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Which of these meals was your favorite? Was it the Italian night at Bella Vista Ristorante, or the day we were at Disney Springs at Chef Art Smith's homecoming where we had fried chicken?
You know my answer. It's fried chicken.
Fried chicken. I'm curious which way this is going.
Italiano.
I figured. It's a split decision. Yeah, both of those were excellent
Oh,
meals.
so good.
We've eaten at Art Smith's multiple times, and that fried chicken, they marinate it overnight, like 24 hours in some kind of brine. And
it's just so tender.
Yeah, and juicy.
And juicy, yeah. Rare.
And don't forget the orange crush.
The orange crush, yeah. Patty is not a drinker.
No.
But when we get to
I
Art
could drink
Smith, she
those.
always orders, and normally if I get something like a beer, she'll say, well, I'll just have a few swigs. That's all she ever wants. When we get to Art Smith's, that orange crush,
It's
she's
all
like,
mine.
It's all hers.
Hands off, baby.
And all I know is they use fresh squeezed orange juice. They muddle in fresh strawberries, and then there's like vodka, and I'm not sure. what else
It's just good.
yeah. So
I'd had a sip. It was very good.
But I have to be honest, we had never ate at Bella Italia
good too.
Ristorante, and I thought that was outstanding.
The portion size.
Yeah, they were just huge.
Yeah. I mean, we brought to-go boxes.
I mean, my lasagna could have fed a family of 4.
Oh, yeah, and Patty is not exaggerating.
It
that
was
thing was
huge.
huge.
It was like a whole pan.
We both had the tortellini, which was massive, and then you ended up having the
veal.
The veals, yeah.
Oh, it was wonderful. I tried
aroma.
it too.
Yeah.
And once again, half mine went back.
Yeah.
I mean, not back, but
Right.
You were
I
just
didn't
full.
eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just such a big portion. Well, it probably didn't help that we had started with calamari
Yep.
Yeah.
and mussels, and then they had bread service.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
Anyway, all right.
Salad,
Well, we know your answers. It was a split decision. I can't remember when we did this summer with the this or that. If you had a split decision,
I can't remember.
I don't remember what the question
I
was.
don't
All
either.
right. Well, anyway, let's get into today's topic, which is we are setting in a. Well, I'm going to let you tell them because this is where the bad influence comes in. So we invited you to go RVing with us this past summer, and you rented a Cruise America. And you had been RVers in the past. You had owned a Class A. So it wasn't like RVing was new to you, but it had been a while since you had RV'd. And then somehow you ended up buying a truck and a fifth wheel. And here we are in absolutely gorgeous fifth wheel.
Yep.
So I'll let you just start sharing the journey. And
well, I think the right way to say it is after our trip, we just the bug just bit.
Yeah.
And we actually thought we were crazy at our age. And we started asking some of our friends, especially our closest friends, and one said, that's absolutely crazy. And then the other one said, oh, man, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of our friends at church said the same thing. If you feel like you can do it, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
right.
And so we ended up, after many weeks of at least 5 times going, we've had it. This is crazy. We're not going to do it. I'm so frustrated. And jump in here anytime. And then, to be quite frank, her and you and my best friend Bill Pollen put me in a headlock numerous times.
Well, I gotta say, Patrick did put the bug back in my ear as well. But We loved camping. We loved our Class A, but we love this. We really do. And the fact that you can get to a location and use your truck and travel, that's a big benefit.
Right. Yeah. And it really, you said it was several weeks, and it probably was, but it was actually a lot quicker than I ever thought, because I remember you calling us after our trip and saying, like, don't get your hopes up, but we are considering. And so we took our trip with you, I want to say mid-June.
Yeah.
And let's see, when was it that you came to Indiana? Was it in August to pick up your
Wasn't
truck?
it Labor Day, your birthday?
Was it Labor Day weekend?
Yeah,
you
Labor
came to
Day
Indiana?
weekend.
Yeah,
It
Labor Day
was.
weekend. So
It
that was
was,
really July, August. So so I guess it was a couple months between actually taking the trip and you starting the process of.
Yeah, and when we get to that point, I want to tell the story about the truck.
Right.
But I will say, I thought, okay, my saving grace to get out of this whole thing is we're going to call Alan, our Edward Jones advisor, and he's going to say, have you lost your mind? And Priscilla's going to hear him say that, and you need this money for long-term care and all the stuff that old people worry about. We get Alan on the phone, and he goes, well, how much money you want? I think it's a great idea. And I'm like, oh, my God.
So Alan is also a bad influence.
No, because I said, Alan, don't you think that's kind of a bad decision? And he says, that's what you've been saving for. And I'm like,
We've never taken anything else out. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's when I finally said, okay, I give up, Uncle.
So when you started thinking, after you've talked to Alan, how did you decide, because you were Class A people prior and you had rented that Class C from Cruise America, what made you decide to not go motorized and go towable?
For me especially, it was a hard decision. But at the end of the day, I didn't want a third drivetrain to maintain. And even if we used the motorhome a lot, they still set more than they run. And that's one of the hardest things on engines and transmissions. And we also, at our age, had to take in insurance considerations. Because, I mean, it's just, as you age, your insurance rates go up. And then, like Priscilla said, in the past, we always towed a small vehicle. Well, we also didn't want to have to buy another small vehicle because even my old truck, we couldn't tow it. So it was really trying to limit the number of drivetrains to take care of and insurance.
Right. And this way you ended up with a new truck. You got to replace your old truck. And so now you still have a truck.
That was also very emotional.
I know it was. So I have to share this story with everyone. So Aunt Priscilla had given Uncle Dennis the green light how many years ago to buy a new truck?
Oh, my gosh, a long time ago.
Yeah. And, like, I think every man in America was probably saying, what are you thinking? If your wife says go buy a new truck, you go buy a new truck. But he didn't because he was emotionally attached. What was that, your old truck?
Oh,
it was a 2005 GMC Sierra. Ran like a top, had 240,000 on it, and I wouldn't have been afraid to drive it from here to Alaska. But just very quickly, I'll digress. I'm known for driving old vehicles. And even my troops, when I was on active duty, when I was on travel one time, we're in cahoots with Priscilla, and they actually made a video, not about this truck, but an older truck that I drove. And had this one lieutenant who really did, they dressed him up with a wig and everything, and he did a great job of imitating me. All over the base, driving my old truck. So that was an old Chevy. Especially my officers, I didn't realize it until we actually sold it. They had bets going on would the old man sell his truck or just take it to Indiana and let it set because we were going overseas. And we sold it, but anyway, I'm known for my old trucks.
And all that went through me to help. I had to get him out of the house and have them come in the house, in the garage, and all this. And this guy dressed up just like him. Of course, it just showed his back, but it looked just like the way he walked and everything.
That's funny.
They studied.
They did study, yeah.
And now, if they knew you were driving a brand
new truck,
they would probably just go, "Oh, he's fading fast."
Yeah. All right. So where do you want to go with this story? So you've now discussed it with the financial advisor, the friends, the family.
And then the really the search, I think, started before that.
And you started with trucks first, if I remember right.
Yes,
We did.
That was like your priority one.
Right.
Well, we knew we were going to have to get rid of the truck.
Right.
And I think anybody that's purchased just a vehicle in general, but especially down where we live in Texas, used truck prices, they're astronomical.
Right.
Well, it's really ridiculous to even consider a used truck when you
Yeah.
can get a new one for the same price almost.
Right. But going into it, and I think we knew, and just it didn't hit us till we started looking, because we'd commented to each other, if we could get a really nice truck, 3 to 5 years old, maybe 50,000 miles on it,
Yep.
that'll be half the cost of a new truck. And what we found is even a truck that was going to be maybe 5 to 10,000 less than a new truck, most of them had 80, 100,000 on it.
Yep.
And so the search for a new truck started, and I think that's a great place to kind of step off. The truck was the most disappointing, and what I mean by that is, and really Priscilla did a tremendous amount of research, so we kind of narrowed it down, and we started calling dealers, and we, for a couple of reasons, we didn't want a crew cab.
Right.
Especially to have the bed big enough to put the fifth wheel in and pull the trailer.
But it wouldn't fit in our garage, I mean.
Well, it would fit in, but we couldn't walk around it.
We know all about that.
Yeah,
We know all about that.
ridiculous. Yeah.
And anyway, and we did. We started with GMC, Chevrolet, and Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, the one dealer, Priscilla called, and we said, well, we want a double cab. And he told her, well, they don't even make those anymore.
He did. It was.
And he said, so all we have is crew cabs. And he did. He said, come and look. And we did, but it just was too big.
Mm-hmm.
Too big. Just I didn't want to be driving an extra 18 inches.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's also our truck for around the property and everything. But then the other thing is, and I don't know a thing about websites, but we found time and time again, and that's not an exaggeration, we would be diligently looking at a website. We would see something we thought we were interested in, and we'd call them, and they'd say, oh, well, that truck sold a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we go, well, it's right here on your website. And typically the person you're talking to on the other end of the phone says, I don't have anything to do with the website. And most of the time they say, we're sorry.
Right.
But I think the one that came really close, well, to where I said, I'm done.
Yeah, we both did.
We found a dealership that's about an hour and 20-minute drive from our house. And I won't name the dealer, the GMC dealer north of San Marcos on 35.
That is as close as we will ever get him to trash talking on the podcast.
I called, and the guy goes, oh, yeah, we've got that truck. And his name was Jim, because by the end of the day, we went up to see Big Jim, who
That we
didn't
felt like
exist.
we knew. Yeah.
And he says, since I know what you're looking for, he says, I'll have 3 or 4 others for you to look at when you get here. And that was on a Thursday, and so we set up an appointment for Saturday, because I can't remember, we couldn't go on Friday. But I told him, I said, I understand it's for sale. I said, if it sells before our appointment, please call us, and we won't make that long drive. Okay, promise. So Saturday morning comes, no calls, so we get ready, make the drive. We get up there, we walk in, and typical, car place. Before we could really get in, there was a salesman. How can I help you? And I said, well, we're here to see Jim. Oh, well, Jim doesn't work on Saturdays. I said, no, I know he does, because we have an appointment with him at 10 o'clock. And he goes, no, Jim only works the phones. I said, now, wait a minute. We've got an appointment with Jim at 10 o'clock, and he's going to have the truck we want or potentially want, and he said he'd have 3 or 4 others for us to look at. And the young fellow says, well, I'm sorry, sir. He only works the phones, but I'll be glad to help you. And I said, well, I've got to be in your computer, because he said he was documenting it all in the computer. The guy goes over there and he goes, No, I don't see anything.
Oh man.
And I said, well, and I actually had where I'd printed out. I said, well, we're looking for this truck. And he goes, well, I'll have to go see if it's in our inventory. And I said, well, he's supposed to have 3 or 4 others for us to look at. And I told him what we wanted because it was a double cab.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, oh, I don't think we have any double cabs.
Oh no.
Anyway, he said, let me go check. So he leaves, and
He was gone about 15 minutes.
yeah, because he comes back and he goes, oh, that truck sold over a week ago. I said, well, wait a minute. He told me on Thursday you still had it. He goes, well, but he says, I'll tell you what. Let me see what we got, and if they're available, I'll show them to you. But he says, you know, you ought to just consider ordering a new truck. And I said, you know what I ought to consider, and I won't say what I said. And it was within about 5 minutes. I just looked at the fella and I said, I basically said, we're not very happy.
Right.
But I wasn't that nice about it. And I said, I said, you know, we drove about an hour and 20 minutes. And I did. I said, this is just wrong. And we got up and walked out.
We did.
And that's when we got to the car and
We're done.
yeah, and actually Priscilla said, you know, I'm really proud of you because you only cussed once.
Well, then you're better than me.
And that's when we said we're done.
Yeah.
And that was a Saturday, and the next day, obviously the next day was Sunday, and that day I know she was doing money. We both had to drive to church, and so I got home earlier than Priscilla, and I have no idea what possessed me to do it. I walked back to the office. I was checking something, and I said, I'm going to look down. I'm going to look on the computer because we knew we were coming to Indiana.
Right.
And I said, I want to just see if maybe one of those county dealers might have a truck. And I did. I just punched in that area, and a family name that's been there, I think, over 50 years. Well, I know that. I think they're 3rd or 4th generation Shepherds in Kendallville. Had, I think it was 3, wasn't it 3?
I think it was 3 double cabs, yeah.
And
We had
absolutely,
2 that were almost identical.
right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely beautiful trucks. And I printed out everything because Priscilla got home and I said, hey, I think I found her truck. And she's like, I thought we were done. I showed it to her and she goes, oh man, that's exactly what we're looking for. A little more money than we wanted to pay.
Right.
And well, that's when I called you guys.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Patrick, when you're coming home from school tomorrow from campus, would you mind going out of your way a little bit and swinging by and just look at this truck? And then the next morning, I don't know, it was about 8:30, I get a text.
You went before school.
I did. I dropped Patty off, and
You
I
were
was
so
on my
excited.
way to work, and I thought, I got time to swing by there right now because I was so excited. And, yeah, I sent you like a little video clip and
did.
said, I don't know if this is your truck, but I think it is because it's a double cab, and I think it was the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It ended up being
Yeah.
that one, yes.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't find the one.
Couldn't find the one
Yeah.
that you had told me to look for,
Yes.
but I found this other one that was on the website that was a double cab that was almost identical, just a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we called Shepherd and worked with a nice young lady. What impressed me about her is she was very upfront. She said, I will handle you preliminarily, but then we're going to get to a point, if you're truly serious, I'm going to hand you off to a salesman. And she was honest. She goes, I work the phones.
Right.
I do all the phone quotes and all that kind of stuff. And I said, okay, fair enough. And I told her the truck we were looking for and everything. And she did. She goes, yes, we have it. And I asked her, I said, you know, what's the lowest you'll take? And she goes, sir, we don't negotiate. That's our price. She says, the one thing I'll tell you is we're not marking them up.
Right, which a lot of dealerships had been doing.
She says, we're selling them for the sticker price. And I said, okay, fair enough. Ask her a few more questions. And I said, well, let me talk to my wife, and I'll call you back here shortly. And I think we called back in like 15 minutes.
Yeah, about 15 minutes. Something
And
like that.
I called her back, and I said, well, what do we need to do to and I explained to her, I says, now you're going to have to hold it I think it was for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was
like that.
2 weeks
2
till
weeks.
you were coming to Indiana.
Uh-huh.
I said, anyway, she said, well, she goes, now she says, I'll be working with you, but a salesman has to write the offer, and then I'll send it to you to look at and everything. But she says, we still have the truck, and then if you really want it, after you get the offer and you're willing to accept it, we can do it. We can hold it with a credit card. And so we did, and as soon as we got the offer, within probably 10 minutes, I called her back and said, yep, it's exactly what you promised me. And we'll take it. And we did the credit card transaction. What was it, about 4 hours later?
Yep.
Our phone rings, and it's this young lady, and she said, sir,
She was so apologetic.
yeah, she said, I am so sorry. I said, well, what's the matter? And she said, while I was working with the salesman for you, that truck sold. And they paid for it. And I said, okay. She goes, we got another one just like it, but it doesn't have the
Running rails. if I
the
remember.
running rails and
Or
the
the wheel.
fender well.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
rear
Wheel wells things.
Yeah.
covers.
But she said, we feel so bad about it for the price that you're going to pay. No, actually, the truck we got had a couple of more options on
Yeah.
it. She said, we're going to stick with that price, and we're going to put the rails and the wheel wells on for you. I said, then we don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you for calling and being so honest. And she said, well, no, we had to tell you because we quoted you a VIN number.
Right.
And they, anyway, so
They sent us another.
yeah, so they had to send us
Right.
another offer. We had to accept that. And then we got into the how you want to pay for it. Well, aren't you going to finance it? We said, no, we'll just write a check. And I asked her, I said, hey, I know we're from Texas. Will you take a personal check? And she says, I'm going to have to check. She got back on the phone and she says, no, sir. She says, but we'll take a certified check from your bank.
Cashiers, yeah.
And I said, well, would you take a wire? And she goes, oh, yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. So anyway, we set up a wire and paid for the truck. And then it was a couple weeks. We picked it up. And I have to say, they had people coming in from all over because the same day we picked up our truck, I think
Virginia, a guy from West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia was coming to pick up a truck.
Yeah.
If you want a really great dealership with really great people, go to Shepherd's in Kendallville, Indiana.
Yeah.
I wish they were here or in San
Texas.
Antonio. Yeah.
And just like I said, they held it for us, and the day we got there, and you could tell it was a small town dealer because we flew in. That's the other thing. We flew into Indianapolis, and it was like 3 days before we were supposed to pick the truck up. The young lady calls and she said, well, sir, you're flying in. We'll be glad to pick you up at the airport. And I said, we're flying in Indianapolis. She goes, we'll pick you up. And I said, no.
crazy.
I said, we have
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I said, we have family that lives in Indianapolis, and we're going to borrow our granddaughter's car. Anyway, so we drove up, but it was hilarious. We pull in the parking lot, and we walk in the front door. A young man comes out and says, would you happen to be Mr. and Mrs. Shoemaker? And we said, well, yeah. And he goes, well, hi, I'm your salesman, and I'll be working with you today to pick up your truck. And the other thing they did is neither one of us are real tech savvy. They had a
Technician,
specialist. He spent over an hour with us.
showing us how everything worked
all
on the inside.
The electronics and
Yeah.
everything in the truck. And anyway, I just can't say enough. We can't say enough good about the way they treated us, and the follow up. Everything's been great. And then
And they also gave you a box of chocolates, which
Oh,
I'm
they
jealous.
did.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yes.
like, who does that anymore?
And
Give
they
you
had
a
their name
gift.
on the outside of it.
Yes, and it was like from a local chocolate
Yeah.
shop or something. I was blown away by
Yeah.
that. Little
well,
touches.
and then to just take it a step further, as I was talking. We were just about ready to leave, and I made the comment. I said, "Well, we're taking it." I said, "We're taking it over tomorrow to Tri-State
Customs.
Yeah, Tri-State Customs. They're gonna put the fifth wheel and stuff in it for us and cover." And he goes, "Man, I wish I would have known that." He says, "We work with them all the time. We'd have been glad to run it over there for you so it was ready." And I could tell he was like, "Man, I've let you down." I was going, "No." Yeah, because we were going to go anyway, stay
you're
with
coming over with us
Patty.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, there's another great shout out, and I know Pat and his father Ron have done a lot of business with him over the years. If you're up in Angola or passing through, Tri-State Customs.
Yeah, they do.
They do
They're
good
local
work.
business. We've dealt with them for years and always fair on pricing, do great work. And by the way, none of these companies we're talking about today are sponsoring
Nope.
this podcast.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is just
no.
all if they want to sponsor the podcast.
That would be great.
Yeah, travelswithdelaney@gmail.com. But no, I just want to be, because sometimes people assume when we talk good
Oh,
about
no. Yeah.
places, and none of us
Yeah.
have any interest.
Well, no, and gosh, I'm so bad with names, but the young man that, and once again, I did everything over the phone, and he was so conscientious about making sure that everything we were ordering would do what we needed for our fifth wheel and what have you. And it was funny because we ordered the fifth wheel and everything that day, and I was talking to Patrick. And I made the comment to him. I said, "Hey, I've been looking online, and I can't find the kind of truck cover you have." And you said, "I thought you got it online." And you said, "No, I got it over there."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, darn, I wish I'd have known that." I said, "Well, I'm going to call him." And I called the guy, and I said, "Hey, I didn't realize that you guys had these covers." And let me back up. I found one that said it would fit a 2023, and I said it was the same bed dimensions and everything on Amazon, but I was hesitant to order it because the way Amazon website's set up, you have to put your truck information in, and it kept coming back saying
Yours was a 24. Yeah,
it won't fit your truck.
right.
So that's why I didn't want to do that. And then when Patrick told me I could get it over there, well, I called this guy and I said, "Hey, I didn't realize you did it. Can you quote me a price?" I said, "I can't remember exactly." I said, "I can get it on Amazon for X," but I said he said it's for a 2023, but it won't fit my truck. And he goes, "The beds haven't changed any." He says, "But we'll sell it." And he said that's our price as well, installed. I go, "Installed?" And he goes, "Yeah." So we got that cover for the same price that Amazon, but when we picked it up, it was all already on. And
Yep.
Boy,
so-
it's quality too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really.
That's a Truxedo brand is the brand. And I had one of those before on the Tundra, but I had the one that just rolled all the way back.
Right.
This one that you and I both now have, you can roll it all the way to the back, which is great because if you need to haul something big, it's out of the way. But what I really liked about this one, it was a little bit more expensive, is on the back side, you flip a switch and that back third closest to the cab of the truck,
Can
you
flip.
just flip that up. So that way you don't have to roll it all the way back to get to something in the back of the bed. And I just love that feature.
Well, no, in Texas, that's so you can reach in the back of the bed and get a beer.
Is that what it is? Okay. That works too. so yeah. But I will say this. Because you're already to the fifth wheel hitch, which indicates you had bought a fifth wheel. But I remember when you found the truck, and then I went and looked, and then you said, "We did it." But again, you cautioned me. We're in no hurry to buy an RV. Truck was part one, so just settle it down. Don't get too excited here because we got so somewhere between buying Budget Buster. That's what Patty.
That's what I call your truck.
Patty named it Budget Buster because it was a little more than you wanted to spend. It is an absolutely gorgeous truck.
Beautiful
by the way.
truck.
Oh,
Absolutely
it
gorgeous.
is. I love it.
So how did you find the fifth wheel? Because this all goes down really quick.
Well, the same thing, both of us, every day, we were on all when I say local, probably within 150 miles.
But it was basically the same way with the used versus new. Yeah.
And well, what we found out on the fifth wheel, there were lots of used ones out there. Most of them were either designed for families,
Right.
meaning there was a
Bunks.
lot of the trailer taken up with like bunk beds,
Yep.
or toy haulers,
and
or they were just too big.
Right.
huge. Yeah.
We could have got, I guess if we had probably got a 40-footer, we could find just
Right.
about anything we wanted. But based on talking with you guys about some of the places we had hoped to go,
Right.
not to get too big.
Right.
Yeah, they won't take them in. Yeah.
Right.
So this was another one. I can't remember what day of the week it was. Well, I think it was a Friday. Yes,
It was after you'd committed to buying the truck, but before coming to get the
Yes.
truck. Yeah.
And I'm looking at another company I want to really, to this point, we can't say enough good about them, and that's Ansira RV
Yeah.
in San Antonio.
We had a great salesman too,
Yeah, Steve Lines.
Steve Lines.
I was looking at their website because they had a used one that we really liked, and by the time I called them, it had sold. And so anyway, I think it was maybe 2 days later, that Friday, I get back on their website, and I don't know what possessed me. I just said, okay, I just want to see what the price of a new one is. That's how we found the one we're setting in. The first thing that popped up when I did new, they had 3 or 4 brand new 2022s.
Right.
That they really want to get rid of.
Yes, they were reduced by what?
48%.
48%.
48% off MSRP, which is
Yeah. Ridiculous.
amazing. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, normally you're looking 30. If you get 35,
Yeah.
you got a deal.
This was unbelievable.
And so
there wasn't a thing wrong with it.
And so Priscilla was out, I don't know, probably getting her nails done. No,
Probably.
She was somewhere. And she got home, and I said, hey, we said we're not going to buy new, but let me show you what I stumbled onto. And it was actually right in the price range of what we thought we'd end up paying for a used one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, oh, I like it. So I called, and that's when, just by luck, I asked to speak to a salesman, and we got Steve Lyons, and I explained to him and everything, and I said, and this was late in the afternoon, I said, would it be possible if we come over tomorrow morning, we could look at it? And he goes, it's very possible, and he said, I'll be here. And I'm like, yeah, I'll bet.
Jim wasn't.
Jim wasn't.
And so we got up the next morning, drove over to Ansira, and he was there waiting for us.
What a wonderful experience it
And
was.
he
really.
had it all opened up for
Yeah.
us and everything. And I told Priscilla when we got out of the car, I said, get ready,
Yeah.
because it's going to be high pressure.
Uh-huh.
From the very beginning, I'm like, okay, this is a setup. Somewhere along the way, we're
We
going to go
kept
around.
expecting,
Yeah,
right.
the
horror stories that
Yeah,
I've told.
yeah.
And he takes us out. I mean, we do the small talk and everything. And he did. He goes like, why and all that. And we told him, and he took us out and showed us this. And he just said, you guys stay out here, keep looking at this, walk around it, sit in it. And then when you're ready to, if I need to come back out, I'll be glad to. Just come in and get me, or we'll just sit down and chat in my office. And we did. We were
And
probably
that's exactly what we did.
and,
Yeah.
and he went inside, and we were probably in here another 20 minutes
Well, I
or
bet
so.
we were opening up everything, looking, and
And we walked in and went back to his office. And once again, we just kept waiting. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, oh, it's beautiful. I said, is that the lowest you'll take? And he goes, he says, I'm not even going to go ask my manager. He said, they took, I think it was 10,000
I think
off
that's what you told me, 10,000.
additional to that.
2 days ago,
Uh-huh.
just to get it off the lot, because we got 24s coming in. He said, I know we can't cut it anymore. And I said, okay. We just looked at him. We said, we just don't make decisions this big. And he said, well, I understand. And I looked at him and I said, look, at that price, if we drive away and you sell it, we understand. And he did. The only thing he said was, he goes, it's only been out there advertised, actually for a day.
Yeah, that was the day.
He said, I think it will sell. That's all he said.
Right.
And I said, okay. I said, we got to go. We got to go crunch some numbers and do some paperwork. And
So how far did we go?
we went down to the first stoplight, turned, and I pulled into a McDonald's parking lot.
And called Patrick.
And called me.
Well, because I just, because we were sitting there talking, and I can't remember if it was I said it or Priscilla said, she goes, we got to call Pat and Patty.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did.
That's a lot of money.
And
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and feel free to jump in
Yeah.
here if
No,
and we just said, because our thing was this is too good to be true. There's got to be something here we're missing.
Yeah.
And this guy's a wizard, and Patty too. They can talk on their phone and do the whole Encyclopedia Britannica at the same time. And they were on websites looking, and
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick couldn't believe the price either.
Yeah, and I remember saying to you, because I didn't want you to feel, because we weren't pressuring you
No.
to
Yeah.
buy, you know, or anything like that. All I said was, if you like that unit,
It's a good
you're
one.
never going to get a deal like that again. But if you felt it wasn't the right unit, you shouldn't buy something just because it's a really good deal. And I remember you saying, no, it's exactly what we want.
It was nice.
And I just said, I've heard of 35, 38% off, but what they had marked this down to, I'm just like,
That's
that is a
crazy.
crazy number.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they were selling it. They probably weren't making anything
Yeah,
on it. They
and
just,
that's what he said.
yeah,
That's what-
they just needed it gone
that's
because
what
they probably
Steve
had
said.
23s on the lot
Yeah.
and 24s, and this is a 22. Nothing wrong with it. Brand new, still has full warranty.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was all I said was, you have to make sure it's the right one for you.
Yeah.
But if money is a concern, or you're looking for a deal, I don't know that you would have
Right.
ever. You would have found some for 30% off, maybe 35% off, but
well, and so we literally drove around the block and went back in and walked in, and a young lady working out front, we said we need to see Steve. And she says, okay. And he come walking back out, and he goes, well, I know you people. And we did. We went and did the paperwork. And, well, one of the things once again, I guess probably every dealer would do it.
Maybe.
But I said, now, Steve, this deal is contingent on we can't pick it up for at least 2 weeks.
We don't have a truck.
And he says, well, why not? And I says, because we don't have a truck. And he
It's
goes,
in Indiana.
no, and I said, we have a truck. We're just not in possession of it. And he laughed, and he goes, oh, he says, I'll check. But he said, we do that all the time, but I do have to check just to make sure we got space. He said, we got to place that in the back. We can park it, and actually we'll plug it in and everything. Because when you come to pick it up, you have to do your orientation and all that. Sure enough, he walks back in. He goes, not a problem. He says, what I'll do is you'll get one key and I'll get the other. And you just, when you know for sure what day you can pick it up, if you could give us 2-3 days in advance.
They did an orientation actually the day we bought it, but then when we came back, they gave us another quick run
Right.
through to show us. Yeah.
And we went back to pick it up. The same gentleman that gave us the original orientation came back out because he said, I want to make sure that your hitch height is correct and everything like that, because he gave me a dimension to give Tri-State.
right.
And we got it all hooked up and everything. It really was. It was funny, and we knew it because of our previous experience. They recommended, they said, we always recommend you go out for 2 or 3 days somewhere local.
Yep.
To where mainly if you forget stuff or you got a major problem, if you have to, you can drive home and sleep
Right.
in your own bed.
That was an excellent idea.
Yep.
And
'cause
we
did.
And we act, and because they said, and find all the issues you can. And that was another concern, because on our previous motorhome, we paid for a very good, what we thought was a very good extended warranty. And every time I would call, it was, well, here's why we're not going to pay for that. And I said, well, I did. I looked at Steve and I said, and to the guy that had to do all the paperwork, I said, I hope the service is as good as you promised, because we've not had that experience before. And I mean, they said, no, this is Ansira family, and if we don't do it right, there's other dealers around here that going to get our business.
Right.
And sure enough, the day I called, the guy immediately looked me up, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you got the new
Cherokee.
Chaparral.
Chaparral, yeah.
It's a 2022 Coachman Chaparral,
Chaparral, yeah.
light.
We looked at several.
33 feet, if I remember right, roughly.
And no, he said, yeah, because he said, because the other thing I told Priscilla, I said, well, it's probably going to take 2 or 3 weeks to get it in. And he said, can you bring it over tomorrow? And I go, tomorrow? No, I can't. Anyway, so we set up a day. We took it over, and he did. He just said, you know, how fast do you need it? I said, we don't. We're planning on going on another trip in about 3 weeks. And he says, well, the reason I'm concerned, he says, certain parts, if I have to order them, they'll take 10 days to 2 weeks to get in.
Right.
I said, no, we're fine with that. And sure enough, then one day got a call, and he said, hey, we're going to be done tomorrow. Can you pick it up? And in fact, we couldn't. He says, no problem. I said, but we can be there the next morning. The one thing I will say is we did have a light problem between the truck and the trailer.
Yep.
And that was one of the things they checked out. When we picked it up, he said, we went through that whole light system, and we can't find anything wrong with it. I said, okay. I said, all he said is, he says, hook it up and take it. He says, because we had it hooked up to 2 trucks here, and we actually towed it around. And we couldn't get any of the faults. And I showed him pictures. I took pictures of them on my truck.
Because your truck was reading that you weren't connected to a trailer, if I remember right.
It did everything from, like, your brakes aren't connected, your brakes are failing,
Getting all kinds of.
And anyway,
So much fun.
we hooked it up, drove it home, same thing again. We knew everything was working.
Right.
I called, which is right next door to Ann Sierra RV. I called Ann Sierra GMC, explained to them, hey, we've got this new truck. We didn't buy it from you, but we would like to use you for service. And they're like, oh, fine. You know, we're your dealership. And I explained to the person that sets the appointments up, I said, I've actually been doing some research online, and I think we've got this problem, and it was the wrong trailer brake or trailer, anyway, control module.
Yep. And that was in I think that was a
2024
or new, well, just 2024 because there's nothing newer quite yet. But and it wasn't a recall; it was a service bulletin. Is that what you called it?
I found it on a service bulletin, searching it out, because you'll only have the problem if you pull a trailer.
Right.
But it was really annoying, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, and every time it's like, well, I think everything's working. But anyway, they said, well, bring it in, and the service manager was very pleased. He goes, boy, most people don't walk in and tell me what service bulletin I need to look at. He said, well, we'll bring it out, and I don't know. He says we're real busy, and I'm short on people right now. He says probably going to be a couple days, but he says I got to have it that long to ring it out.
Right.
Anyway, they did all that. He called me. He says, yep, we looked at service bulletin. We got all the same faults. We ordered it, changed it out. Your truck's ready. Went over to pick it up, and I said, now, you guys know I didn't buy this truck here, but we'd like to use you for service. And he goes, you're already in our system.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's the big difference between the auto industry and the RV industry. In the auto industry, they never ask you where you bought your vehicle.
Yeah.
If they're a Chevy dealer, they work on your vehicle, or a Ford dealer or whatever. Where with the RV industry, more often than not, let's say you're traveling and you have an issue and you find a Coachman dealer, they probably, if you say I need service, the first thing they're going to say is, did you buy the RV from us? And some of the manufacturers require dealerships, like I know Lance was that way. They require dealerships who sold Lance to work on all Lances. What they don't require them to do is make you a priority. So they'll be like, yes, we'll work on it in 6 months type thing. I'm exaggerating, but we were told 3 months by a dealership because the first question was, did you buy from us? And I said, no, we did not. We bought it in Texas. And he goes, well, we will work on it. He was honest. He goes, but you're not a priority.
Right.
Because we have people we have sold, kind of like, Aunt Sarah probably will give you priority. But it's always interesting because the auto industry is not that way. They never ask you, did you buy your car?
Right.
You just call up and say, I need to get an oil change or tires or whatever. And
But one of the other things that's so nice about that, the Ansara RV and Ansara Auto Dealership is right next door to each other.
yeah,
So
you like lucked out.
yeah,
Yeah, you did.
yeah. So we could drive over, drop off our fifth wheel, and if we need to do something on the truck, go over and wait on it.
Yep.
And then it's just so convenient. And then they can work together.
Right,
you know,
right.
if something's wrong, and they did.
But-
Yeah.
I think, and I know we've been rambling on here quite a while. I remember saying this in the last podcast. Well, if you can and you want, obviously do what we did. But if you're never camped before, especially used an RV, go do it. Shout out to Cruise America. When we got back home and our friends said, well, how was it? We said, we forgot how much fun it is and the really cool people you meet, that you never have that experience in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No, if you walk down the hallway of a hotel and you started
People-
saying hi, people
yeah.
would like run, like, you know, you get in a campground, instantly your friends
Everybody.
with all, everybody, hey,
Everybody
how you
does,
doing? I mean,
yeah.
it's a great community to be a part of.
It is.
Well, and pardon me, other than our little 3-day trip, our first trip was down to Port Aransas for us, which is about 3-hour drive away. And boy, did we luck out. Once again, a friend of a friend, my best friend Bill Pollen, a friend of his, he had made the comment that we'd bought this fifth wheel and everything, and they have, his friend has a fifth wheel. And he says, oh man, tell him a great trip is go down to Port Aransas, gave us the campground and everything, even a site number if we could get it. And we couldn't. In fact, it was funny because it was Thanksgiving weekend. I got online and we got their last spot, which was, quote, one of their low-end spots. It's one of the nicest spots we ever
The
camped.
pictures of it looked
it
amazing.
had it's our own cabana. I mean, the picnic table underneath it was just really nice.
And we probably the total walk, maybe 300 yards to the back of the campground, over a boardwalk, over the dunes, and we're on the beach.
It's beautiful, just beautiful.
I love beach camping.
And the beauty of, and I'm drawing a blank. Can you remember the name of
I
it?
can, honey. No.
Anyway, it's far enough out of town that it's like your own private beach.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and we thought it would be, the beach would be busier on Thanksgiving than it was, and there was like us and these 6 other people.
Yeah,
That's
It
great.
was nice.
So you can have a lot of fun, and
And this was your first big trip.
This one
Yes.
here.
it
yes.
was.
How about how many miles was it from Texas to here in Central Florida?
1260.
1260, okay.
Yeah.
And you spent 3 nights out getting here.
2.
Two.
Yeah,
Okay.
third night was here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Third night was here.
Day 1, it was a long day for us.
Right.
Yeah.
For like you guys and young folks that just go and
No,
go
that's
and go.
beginning to be a long day for us too. So
But yeah, it was.
I got my first senior discount yesterday. I'm not so young. So,
Okay.
That was
I
your
saved-
first one.
My
Yeah.
very first one, I saved $1 with you two.
Yeah.
Hattie was the expensive one
I'm the
yesterday.
expensive one,
It cost
yeah.
her $13. We were only 12 apiece. So anyway,
Well, no, but we went. What it was 468 day 1,
I think so.
468 miles,
that's a haul.
and yeah, that was a haul, and we were ready.
I bet.
But once again, both places we stopped on the way were just awesome. One was a KOA, and the other one was called a
Stop and go or
Stay and Go.
stay and
Stay and
go.
go, yeah.
Yeah.
Right off the interstate.
Yeah, they were both nice.
But beautiful campsites. Not that we really, other than hooking up and getting some sleep, but we just great experience.
yeah,
And then
Good.
you're going to do your first harvest host on your way home from Florida.
we
yeah,
are.
that'll be Saturday night.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you're going to love harvest host.
Yeah, we're set up for that, and then the second night another KOA, not the same one,
Right.
and then home.
There you
on-
go.
Yeah.
And you're not full-timing. You didn't sell the house to live in
Nope.
an RV or
No.
anything like
Nope.
that. But you have kind of committed to trying to be more regular with the RV. It's not going to be just a once a year or a couple times a year.
Well, we figured 2 or 3 years.
Right. In total of ownership.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's just like we had a boat. and we both committed to each other, is when the novelty and the fun of the boat wore off, because a boat is this thing that sits on the water you put money on.
Plus, we had it in a
Slip and
a
everything.
slip.
Right.
You had to pay for the
And
slip.
it was like at the 2.5-year mark. One day we were at the boat and we said, it's the first time we've been out in about 3 weeks.
Yep.
And we did. We looked at each other and said, yeah, I think it's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
And we did. Didn't have any trouble selling it.
And so we're going to
That's what we thought we'd do with
be,
this.
well, especially before we just let it set
Right.
Right. And get
Right.
to where it loses
Deteriorates.
value just
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
not being used. And anyway, we're going to,
There you go.
it's like that adventure's over.
Yep.
I think that's great.
Awesome.
And I think you said you're going to try to go out
Once
once
a month.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Most of those trips were going to probably be 5 or 6 days.
Mhm.
Right. Local, because Texas is a big state.
Oh,
Lots
my
to
goodness.
explore.
And
There's so
and-
much we haven't seen.
Yeah, and we're not Texas natives.
No,
and so,
we
yeah,
wanna
we
go
want to
see
go
it.
see Texas.
Mhm.
And we both love the coast. So, and the
Right.
coast is 3 hours away.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
And then sprinkle in a big trip here or there, like the
Yeah.
Florida
Yeah.
trip. And,
Yeah.
and
well, we're already planning one next year to the Smokies.
Mhm.
Yep.
But yeah, just once again, if you're someone that's never tried it and you're watching this or hearing it, man, take your family and go do
Yep.
it.
And I think one of the big things too is the rental, because if you've never RV, now you guys had RV, the rental was really just a means to get you to come with us, as opposed to staying in hotels.
Right.
Right.
But somebody who's never RV'd, I still say renting to make sure you're going to like
Yes.
it, because there are some people who have RV'd before. I don't know why, but it's just not their thing, and you hate to see somebody go out and spend a lot of money on an RV and then realize like, oh, it's not for us, because unfortunately RVs do not hold their values
Nope.
typically. Like,
Well,
Right.
the other thing people can consider, and if you want to just see what it's like, maybe staying in a campground, in hopefully a nice place, and depending if you're an older couple with it, the kids are grown and gone, well, maybe go to some place where it's age restricted. But what we found, and you guys I'm sure know more about this than we do, there's sites you can go to, and you can rent. I mean, even sitting on a lot.
Yep.
To where you can go spend the week, a weekend, or
Yeah.
what have you, just to see what it's like to live in the.
be
Sure.
in an RV.
That's a perfect idea.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I know. When we go to Myrtle Beach, we like to stay at Myrtle Beach Travel Park, and they just have like a
A
couple
rental pool,
rows
yeah.
of RVs permanently parked for you. They're not park models; they're still an RV like yours, but you can rent it for the week
Yeah.
right at the beach. But you're right, because then somebody could kind of get a sense of what's it like to have a tank that you're going to have to go outside at some point during the week and pull some valves and dump your tanks. And, I just think it's a great way. And there's a lot more companies now renting. Obviously, Cruise America is a great option for motorhomes if you want to rent a motorhome. But I think there's a company called Outdoorsy where people rent their RVs.
Yes.
And so you could,
Yep.
maybe you want to try a travel trailer if you have something to pull it with. I just think it's a great way if you've never done it. And some dealerships will rent. I know
Yes.
where I don't know if Princess Craft does in Round Rock.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but we know of dealerships where they will have a few trailers that
Yep.
they'll rent out, and you can just rent from the dealership and try it out.
And we noticed, and it's just within the past few months. Anyway, on the highway from out where we live in the country to go into the city, and I think they have 6 or 8 travel trailers sitting there, and the sign just says "Rent me"
Yep.
with a phone number and.
Yep.
Yeah.
And but the one thing just happened to pop into my mind, and I think it's worth mentioning. In the last podcast, we tried to be very fair, but we dinged Cruise America on a couple things. It was shortly after you guys aired it. We got a call from the vice president of Cruise America,
Yep, very impressive.
and he actually thanked us. He said that he was taking to heart everything we dinged him on because he felt we were fair. He thanked us for praising where we praised. He said, "I thank you for being fair," but he said, "We're going to take your feedback," and he says, "I've already sent the podcast out to every Cruise America site manager and said, everybody needs to listen to this and don't get upset with the dings. Listen. Obviously, I can't tell you that things have gotten better, but for him to call us.
Right. It's very impressive.
Right.
It was.
So
very.
that just that really.
And he even offered money, like because of the tire thing. He asked, "What do we
Yes.
owe you for the tire?" and you
Right.
know, things like that.
Yeah, and he was very concerned. So that to me that reinforced if we weren't setting in this, we would have probably been renting from them again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we would.
Right. Because I remember you called me right away, and you were very impressed. Well, I was impressed. I'm like, that's pretty impressive because he did some. I mean, obviously, he had to get into their records, figure out who you were, find your information to reach out, and I think you said he was fairly persistent in calling.
Yeah,
to the point you finally said, "I got to take this call."
It was 3 times, wasn't it? then?
Yeah.
Yeah, within 20 minutes.
And really just a wonderful man, and the fact that vice president, they're a huge. I didn't realize they were so big. I think he told me on any given day they got like 5,000
Wow.
motorhomes on the highways of America and Canada.
And I believe they're the largest.
Yeah. So, but I just here again, I'll shut up. But go see America.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Well, we're going to.
Yep.
And well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sitting down and sharing the story of going from a rental to ownership,
Yep.
and you're still talking to me, which is a good thing. So, no, we're traveling together, and what we'll do is we'll sit down with you this summer when we go on that next trip and focus on after you've had it. At that point, you will have had it
Right.
not quite a year, but you'll have a couple more trips under your belt, and then we can talk about what you love and don't love about
Right.
this RV.
Yeah.
Things you would
And
change.
yeah,
or
what would you have done it differently? That type of
modifications,
thing.
stuff like
So
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'll go to the top of the list for the most appearances on Travel
Yep.
With the podcast. I think right now Mark and Karen
Have been twice.
on twice, so you're now tied with them. Angie and Kevin, I think, have been on twice.
Twice.
So,
Yeah.
well, thank you everyone
Yep.
so much.
Well,
for,
wait, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
I got to do one more plug, and it's the best and the biggest one of the day. These two.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I'm prejudiced, but I work overtime to be Patty's favorite uncle.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget that.
No, but these two are just awesome, and if you ever have the opportunity to shake their hands, make sure you do.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Remember,
Sweet.
Travels with Delaney.
Oh,
Aw,
thank you so
thank
much.
you.
We appreciate that. They're not just saying that because we're related, I don't think. So.
We'll pay him later.
Yeah, we'll take care of you at lunch today. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Travels with Delaney. And until next time, Patty, we'll see you.
On down the road.
Bye, everybody.
Travels with Delaney. We'll see you on down the road.